After almost a month away, mixed martial arts is finally back in your life as the UFC returned Saturday night with a card. Ads did KSW. I'll run through the results of that in a second. But I came on here today rather than, maybe look forward or maybe, do an interview or do something else on this show today. I wanted to just talk about the break, kind of what it's meant, and a few things that happened on Saturday night as well, and maybe why Saturday night was maybe a little bit different from other nights we have in mixed martial arts. Because I was talking to a few people directly after the card and doing a couple of podcasts and things like that, and I think the kind of the general consensus was that, like, it was a card that maybe wasn't the best card in the world, with maybe none of the best fights in the world, but we all seem to enjoy it a little bit more than maybe we normally would have, because there was such a break. We'd almost, 4 weeks away. We were wanting mixed martial arts. People were absolutely dying for it. And I know, look, people covering the sport, we need a break. We need maybe this twice a year. And I think the coverage would be a lot better. We'd be a lot happier. Wouldn't be giving out as much as we seem to do a little bit. Although my Sherdog stuff, people say it's like the most positive stuff I've done. So that's good. I like a bit of positivity. I don't like to be giving out all the time. But fans, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this as well, were dying for MMA. Like on Saturday nights, especially at this time of the world, I suppose, with the pandemic and everything, that here in Ireland as well, especially, things are closing at 8 o'clock. So it's not like you're missing out on a night out or going out for dinner or going out to the cinema or something. Everything's fucking closed there. And I'm sure there's certain parts of the world are the same or are just difficult to get to places even if they're not closed down. So having the fights to either come home to after a day out or here watch, nearly after a night out, if it was possible to have one here, were great. And people kind of loved that, and it was their Saturday night routine to watch the fights and relax and have maybe their few drinks and order a pizza and something like that. And not having that for a month is tough. It's a tough time of the year as well for people over Christmas with their mental health and with different things, and to take away that that routine wasn't. I'm sure some people, they struggled with it, and I've great sympathy for those people. But we're back now. We're back, and as I said, stealing the phrase from my good friend Ariel, that mixed martial arts is back in our life, and it certainly was back last night. And another reason I think why that sort of break is good is because it makes us want to see these cards. It makes us really anticipate it, like we'd never anticipate a fight night like this usually. Now, I think, and it's hard to say this, but maybe they missed the beat by not putting UFC 270 as the first card. And I know there's logistics and everything like that, but imagine if on Saturday night we had Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane as the first fight back in the main event, and we had the flyweight title, and we had Topuria and all of that coming up. I'll have a preview of those top two fights especially coming out here in the next couple of days on Sherdog as well, so look out for that. But imagine if that was the first card back, what the anticipation levels would have been. I actually think it would have added some buys to the pay-per-view as well from the UFC's point of view, but alas, that didn't happen. I think that was a big thing as well. I remember speaking about it in one of the first podcasts I did here, or videos even on Sherdog, about Bellator when they came back after the pandemic. They were on, it's such a long time out, and then they came back with a kind of an average card with I think one good fight at the top of it, and then maybe two cards later they had this stacked really, really good card. So I think they kind of missed the beat in that as well, and I think the UFC maybe missed a little bit of a beat, not putting on a better or a higher level card for the first one back, and instead leaving it for the second one back. But I shall digress on that one as well. It's done now, and that's the way it happened. I want to talk about a few people on the card. I want to talk a little bit about the main event, but the first person I want to talk about here is Viacheslav Borshchev. Now, maybe I hope I pronounced his name correctly, because it's a name we're going to have to learn. It's a name we're going to have to remember, because for me, and maybe it's the first card of the year, maybe it's Happy Shawnee watching this card and getting taken away, but I think this guy is championship material. I think this guy has it all. I think he is... look, 7 fights in and he's 6-1, so he has lost. It's not like he's invincible or anything like that, but looking at his game, I think he he can go right to the very top. To steal a phrase from Harry Redknapp, talking about his nephew, he can go right to the very top. No, it's not easier. It's easier said than done to do that. Everything has to go right for him. He has to, he has to have the mindset. He has to have the physicality, the body, the injury record, and all to get there. But I think, having watched him now twice, which is probably not enough, but I think he's one of those guys that stands out to me. He's like, this guy could be a UFC champion in the future, and I say that because the last time I watched him was on the Contender Series, and now people probably know I'm over here in Ireland, and I'm not watching the Contender Series every week. It's on. My life is already wrecked enough with the Saturday night staying up until 7 a.m. So to stay up until like 4 a.m. on a Tuesday night, it's just not happening. But Chris Duncan fought Borshchev on the Contender Series, and Chris Duncan, obviously from Scotland, here close enough to my part of the world. I wanted to keep an eye on him. I wanted to see his fight. I've watched all of his fights on the local scene here, and he was in Bellator and other places. And I think a lot of him. I think he's a really, really good fighter. So I tuned in for his fight. And he fought Borshchev, and it was very unlucky for him to come up against someone like Borshchev, because it was a beatdown. It was a real beatdown. Borshchev just beat him from pillar to post, bloodied him up and absolutely destroyed him. And I thought from that point on, this is the guy you need to think about. This is the guy you need to keep an eye on. And he kind of crept up on me on this card as well, because I hadn't delved into this card too much. I was still on kind of holiday mode until late last week. So it was one of those cards I kind of just showed up to and watched it and enjoyed. And then I was like, one of my friends, Ian, actually mentioned it to me. Borshchev is on this card. That's the guy that beat Chris Duncan. And the second I heard that, I was like, okay. Dakota Bush is a good fighter. Dakota Bush has 11, 12 fights coming into this. Really, really, solid fighter. And he looked good in the start of this fight. He was landing shots. He got the fight to the ground. Looked good. Put up a good test against Borshchev. But there was a point in that fight, and it only went, 3 minutes, 47 seconds. There was a point in that fight where Dakota Bush was throwing shots and landing a few of them, and they weren't having that much of an effect, and you could just see that Borshchev was going to land one, And luckily enough for the Dakota Bush, it ended up on the ground. But when it got back up on the feet, and I thought Borshchev, I thought he looked good on the ground. I thought he didn't panic for any time in any situation. I thought he defended really, really well. He managed to get himself out of everything, and did really, really well. So if that's a worry maybe about his ground game or something like that, I don't look. Going forward, we'll see. But on Saturday night, I thought he did really, really well. And once he got back to the feet, he was just devastating. That body shot, people are calling it a liver shot. I think it was, maybe people disagree with me. People obviously know a lot more about the human anatomy than me. But to me, it looked a little bit higher. I think it looked ribs. It was a rib crusher, I think, more than a liver shot. And it was one of those ones as well. Did you ever see, there was the famous one, Ricky Hatton back in the day, when he went up and he's up in weight class, I believe. I can't remember who exactly what he fought, but people will probably be able to tell you in the comment section. Hit him with a liver shot, the left hook, I believe. And it just, you take it, you get hit once and then you take that knee and you go down. We've seen it throughout the years, with different people. Even Charles Oliveira, it happened to him a couple of times back in the day, and Cerrone and things. You kind of see the grimace on their face. They're saying like, I don't want to do this. You see them holding their body and then they go down. That is the usual thing we always see in boxing and in MMA. This one, you didn't see that. You saw the shot going in and you saw the guy on the ground with his head smashing off the canvas. This halved Dakota Bush. It really, really halved him. And there was nothing he could do. There was no reaction. It was just immediate. The body just gave up on him immediately. And that's absolutely nothing against Dakota Bush. He couldn't do anything about it. He literally couldn't do anything about it. It isn't a case of toughness or fighting through it or anything. There was no fighting through this. It was such a monumental shot. He absolutely, cut him in two. And that was it. And when you have power like that, when your ground game looks as good as it is, when you control all different types of shots, and he seems to be a bit of a personality as well, which absolutely matters in mixed martial arts. I think Viacheslav Borshchev, we'll have to learn it. Viacheslav Borshchev. Let's learn that name. Slav. Let's just call him Slav. He calls himself, Slav at Christmas, or, I don't know what it is, but Borshchev, this guy, This guy, if you didn't see the fights on Saturday night, if you didn't catch the undercard, or it was actually the first fight in the main card, the second fight in the main card, this guy is definitely one, I think, to keep an eye on. Really, really, really top talent. Really good. Right. So we'll drop back to the UFC in a second, but while I'm on mispronouncing names, KSW had a card as well, and I'm actually just kind of catching up with it here at the moment. But the two main events, the co-main event and the main event, both for the titles. In the main event, Marcin Zajewski won a unanimous decision against Boris Mankowski. Was even gone into the 5th round, I believe, and Marcin ended up getting the 5th round and retaining his title. But Thomas Narkun in the co-main event ended up losing his title. As I mentioned on the preview show, Narkun was the winningest, to steal a terrible American phrase, KSW champion. He defended his title more than anyone else at the moment anyway in KSW. And he ended up losing a unanimous decision to Ibrahim Shuzgayev. Similar sort of fight as well. I think Shuzgayev won a couple of the last rounds to win the decision there, and I don't think there was any controversy or anything there. I think a lot of people had it scored that way. So very interesting one there. One of my bets of the week was Mikhail Materla. He ended up getting the finish over Jason Radcliffe. If anyone hasn't seen it, I actually tweeted it out. Hit him a beautiful right hand over the top, and ended up finishing Radcliffe with a bit of ground and pound. So Materla returning to KSW. He's a guy who I'm sure could be getting a title shot at 185 or elsewhere in the next few fights. So I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes from here. Always fun to watch him. Then the Rakowski brothers, as I gave as well, Sebastian beat Nicholas Backstrom, and Donovan Desme beat Lucas Rakowski. So good to see Desme getting a win there as well. He came over from Cage Warriors, lost one fight, and a lot of people were like, oh, we're a little bit surprised because I thought he'd won the Cage Warriors lightweight title against Agi Sardari, and a very, very close decision. That one, I think it could have gone either way, but after 2 losses in a row, I think he's a better fighter than that, and then he's bounced back here. His record is 15-7 now, I believe. Like, that could easily be 17-5, which looks a little bit different, but still a very good record and still a very, very good fighter. He got the submission in the second round here against Lucas Rakowski. So a mixed night for the Rakowski brothers there. But as always from KSW, putting on big fights and putting on even fights as well, that you don't know who's going to win in them, and that's the way it turned out again on Saturday night. So very good stuff there from KSW. Looking forward to their upcoming events and upcoming cards as well, seeing what's going to happen with the champions here on this one, and seeing what's going to happen with the others as well over the next while. Cage Warriors as well, just a quick update, are coming back not too far away now. They're having like a featherweight card, as I kind of suggested over on Twitter, and their matchmaker Ian Dean kind of like, yeah, well, I'd love to do that, because in the main event you have the interim champion Paul Hughes from here in Ireland taking on Vucinic in the main event in a big rematch. Who Vucinic is the champion, and he got injured before his fight with Morgan Charrier late last year. Hughes stepped in, so they will be unifying those titles. Then James Hinden, another featherweight, is fighting underneath that, and Tobias Harila as well has a big fight as well at featherweight, and I think he will be probably the next challenger, unless Charrier has something to say about that, to that title. So a very, very interesting card. Wise matchmaking to kind of line all of them up and line the next challengers up under the two champions. So I'm really, really looking forward to Cage Warriors getting back as well. Hopefully we see the likes of Joe McColgan back as well, and the other Irish guys and the other champions as well, because it's a big year, I think, for Cage Warriors. They're on about coming back to Ireland. Hopefully the restrictions lift here, and Bellator will be back as well towards the end of the next month, if the restrictions lift again. But we'll digress in that. We'll talk about that again soon. But just to pop back to the UFC, one person I wanted to mention before talking about the main event, just to wrap up kind of the weekend. I think Katlyn Chookagian maybe deserves a little bit more respect from all of us. What do you think? Like, it just feels like sometimes we look at Chookagian, and look, we all do it. We're like, oh, Chookagian via decision. We knew it was going to happen. Everyone knew it was going to happen. But the fact that everyone knew it's going to happen makes Katlyn Chookagian a pretty good fighter. Like, it's a weird situation, because the gap between Valentina Shevchenko and everyone else is massive. But the weird thing is, if you take Valentina Shevchenko out, the gap between Katlyn Chookagian and almost everyone else is there as well. Now, maybe it's not massive, and maybe if she was the champion, maybe she wouldn't be a dominant champion or anything like that if Shevchenko wasn't around. But, and obviously she lost to Andrade, but most people, so I said it last night, death, taxes, and Katlyn Chookagian beating anyone from number 4 and down by decision. You can't sniff at that. Like, that deserves respect. Okay, she might be the most exciting fighter in the world. She might be a big finisher. We might know that she's not going to win the title as long as Shevchenko is there. Fine. But that doesn't mean you can't be a good fighter. Look at Court McGee as well on this card. And now he's a very much a lower level. I'm not equating them in terms of level. But if you look at Court McGee and level in the division, if you know what I mean, not level in terms of fighting ability. But if you look at Court McGee, right, Court McGee is never going to be ranked. He's never going to fight for a title. He's never going to be a top 5. None of that. But you can still respect Court McGee as a fighter. You can still respect what he goes out and produces. You can still respect where he is and the place he has in the division. I think you absolutely can. And even down through the years, guys say like Joe Lozon and others in the divisions who are never going to get to the title picture. But I think who we can have a lot of respect for. Now, Katlyn Chookagian is in a weird position because maybe she was lower down and out of the rankings or something, and it was a bigger division, and she put as tough a test on people as she does. Maybe she'd get a little bit more respect. The fact that she's towards the top of the division and we kind of know she has met her ceiling while Shevchenko is there anyway, we kind of treat her with like a little bit of disrespect maybe in some ways. And I don't think she deserves that. Like, it's not easy to go in there and win UFC fights over and over and over again. Her record, I'm looking at here, 17-4. That's a fantastic record when considering she's been fighting in the UFC for years now. She's joined with Valentina Shevchenko now for the most wins in that 125-pound division. And absolutely, look, it's not the strongest division in the world or anything like that. And there's lots of things. There's lots of things you can say, lots of excuses you can make. But at the end of the day, she's gone in there, she's winning fights, she's dominating most people she fights, and she's doing it over and over and over and consistently again. And if that isn't worthy of respect, I don't know what is. I don't know what is. So, we could joke about Katlyn Chookagian, we can call her a tennis player and all that. But at the end of the day, she's gone in there, she's doing her job, and she's doing it very well. Very, very well. And if you can't have respect for that, I don't know what you can have respect for. But anyway, I digress. The main event, right? I look, this main event will be broken down everywhere, so I won't go on a big long rant or a soliloquy about this main event, but sorry, I'm still getting over this cough. To me, it's one of those fights where I think a lot of people watching the fight live and for the days after are going to be talking about this as like a great, great fight. And maybe even if we come to the end of the year and you have your list, if you're starting your list now for your awards, maybe people will put this on, and it sounds like a joke, but they'll put it down as a fight of the year contender. I know there's only been one fight this year basically that's been any good, but you know what I mean. Towards the end of the year, if we're looking, and if you keep your list, which I never do, this will be on these lists, I bet you. But it shouldn't be. I don't think it should be. No, not to say it wasn't a good fight, but it was so one-sided that I don't think it can be a great fight. And I've said that in the past before. I said it with Kattar versus Max Holloway as well. So I'm not picking on Kattar or anything like that. And I've said it with other fights as well. I don't think they can be great. Now, the Kattar Max Holloway fight, I remember saying after that one, you can call this one of the greatest performances in UFC history by Max Holloway. Absolutely. But to call it one of the greatest fights, that's just not right, I don't think. I just don't think it's right. And this, when it comes to the end of the year, maybe it is. We don't know what's coming, but I don't think it should be in the discussion for fight of the year. Very good fight, don't get me wrong. And now that might sound like I'm being a little bit negative on this fight, so I'll turn around and talk about the actual fight itself. I thought it was a very good fight. It was a very good fight, don't get me wrong. I thought, look, for Kattar to come out and perform the way he did after the hellacious beating he took, as I previously mentioned, against Max Holloway, was insane. It was actually insane for someone to fight like that. And, Mark Raimondi tweeted out that his coach at Chartier, I'm going to give him the French pronunciation as well, like Chartier, kept him out of the gym for a couple of months after that beatdown by Max Holloway. let him revitalize his body and brain and then come back in and train again. And I think that's fantastic. And that's not something that is easy to do, but it's also something that is planned. And it's something that gets you a win like this, you know? And we have to give great credit for that. If someone went away and they trained wrestling for 6 months and they came out and they wrestled someone, we give them great credit for it. Why not give someone credit for protecting themselves and, you know, making themselves the best fighter they can be to fight their next fight? And also as well, I think a big thing is the confidence. Because we see a lot of fight. Look at Francis Ngannou when he lost to Stipe in their first fight. The next fight he came out against Derek Lewis and he couldn't throw a punch. You know, he just didn't have the confidence anymore. Now, thankfully for everyone, that came back, and you know, we'll see it again next weekend. But it's not easy to come out and be a confident fighter again. You could say that a little bit with McGregor after some of his losses. He hasn't been maybe the same confident fighter that made him a special fighter anymore. It's not that easy to be confident when you take such a beating. But Kattar came out here, and okay, maybe not at the very start, but from minute maybe 3 or 4 on, once he got that takedown, maybe it was a little bit earlier, I'm not sure. He looked confident and he looked really good. And that's a big mental hurdle to get over. And the physical hurdle, he already got over, by taking a couple of months off. But the physical hurdle in the fight, he got over as well. And that's fantastic. So, you know, we could probably everyone talk about the X's and O's. I'll mention a bit of it here maybe in a second. But that point of view, from the mental point of view from Kattar. And also, he said after the fight, people wrote me off coming into this fight and, you know, I proved them all wrong. Now, usually when fighters say that, it's BS. You know, it's not true. People, you know, it might have been a 50-50 fight. He probably saw 5 people on Sherdog here or MMA Junkie or somewhere picking against him. He's like, everyone's writing me off, even though 12 picked him to win, you know. But that's the way fighters work. But this fight, people were writing him off. This was like, it's the first fight of the year, you know, sure, Giga will win that. Why aren't they waiting to give Giga the title shot? I did it myself. I'm not blaming other people or anything. Lots of people, most people I think did it. Writing him off, completely writing him off. And he showed them, and that can't be easy as well, you know. And look, maybe it helped. Maybe it helps a mindset like that. It's like, well, I'm going to prove these fuckers wrong. And that he absolutely did. And I think the way he did, look, you can talk about what happened to Giga. He had a big strapping on his left ankle. I wonder did he come in with an injury? I wonder was he able to train properly with that injury because his cardio kind of died a death in the second round. And he kind of, sometimes fighters revert to type. You know, if it's a wrestler, they'll just start wrestling. He just started jabbing. He was like a robot, just jab, 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 jab. And there was about a 90-second, maybe 2-minute period in the middle of that second round where he was actually winning that period, maybe not winning the round, but winning that period of the fight with that jab. But you could see that it really hadn't much pop and it really wasn't doing much to Kattar, whereas Kattar shots were doing a lot more to him. But it was just like his natural base instinct, I think, to do that. And it worked really well for him. But then towards the end of that second round, he was just so tired. I just don't think he could do any more. And from that point on, I think there was maybe 3 big shots that he landed throughout the fight for the next 3.5 rounds. And the 5th round where he came out and for maybe the first minute, he looked like he could do stuff. But there was a body lock at one stage and he just looked so tired again. But look, the takedown from Kattar in the first round absolutely changed that fight, took the cardio away from him, and there was kind of no coming back from it. But look, I think if I was to kind of sum up this weekend and this fight, it would be like to not write people like this off. Even Chookagian as well. Don't write her off. You know, don't write her off. You never know what's going to happen with Shevchenko and others like that. For Kattar, something we always do it. And it's weird because I don't think we actually did it right after the Holloway fight. Everyone kind of praised Holloway and said, look, Kattar will be back. And then by the time this fight came over, we're like, well, Kattar got destroyed in his last fight. Giga's really good. He's probably going to finish him. I picked him to finish him. And how wrong I was. And fair play to Calvin Kattar. He absolutely deserves all the adulation that he's going to get this week for a fantastic performance, and it'll give us a little bit of pause as we go forward into our next picks and into the next fights to be careful about who we're picking and not write lads off because they had one maybe bad performance or they came up against one guy who is just very, very legit. And look, the same could be said for Giga coming forward and going into his next couple of fights. So Right, I believe it there. I've gone on for long enough. Appreciate everyone who has watched. Happy New Year to everyone. If you could, please give it a thumbs up. Please click subscribe to Sherdog and visit the brand new Sherdog.com as well. It looks absolutely fantastic. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.